Hello guys, happy Monday. I hope that you're having the most incredible day so far. Today I'm kind of concluding this last in a teeny tiny little mini series called Leadership Isolation Syndrome. And if you haven't watched the first two videos, they are available on my YouTube. I will put the link to that channel in the comments. You're also welcome to catch them in the replay section or the guide section of the Facebook group that I moderate called Support and Solutions for Heart-Centered Mompreneurs. And so let's just start by saying, what is leadership isolation syndrome? And this video that I did, the first video that I did on this topic, really generated a ton of discussion, so much so that we needed a part 2 and 3. And so part 1, we discussed what leadership isolation syndrome is, which is basically this phenomenon which happens as you, as a human being, come into leadership or start to have leadership influence over other people. And this can be in your vocation or career. I had women come forward and share with me how they experienced leadership isolation syndrome when they became mothers or leaders in that kind of forum in their households, and how isolating that need, to be the leader can be. And leadership isolation syndrome is just that phenomenon of going, oh, I once had a ton of people, and now that I'm kind of elevated, I guess, in your own mind in a leadership position, all of a sudden I feel like I've got no one to talk to. I feel isolated. And this has come about because of my leadership or because of the influence that I have over other people or among other people. The second video, which I did last week, Friday, I discussed how to know that it's becoming a problem for you and for your health. And the reason why this was an important video was because as human beings, we are biologically created to need or require human connection to flourish. And so, it's very ironic that leaders or people in a position of influence who they're like, as a leader, your flourishing impacts the flourishing of other people. And when you are cut off from human connection, your flourishing will deteriorate, or you will flourish less, or your flourishing will be compromised. And so your ability to lead from a place of integrity, your ability to lead from sustainably is compromised to the degree that you are isolated or disconnected from other people. And so this is a very serious thing. And so we spoke about that in the second video. And today we are talking about what to do about it. So this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about. And so we'll just jump straight in. So point number 1, take responsibility for the fact that you are the one experiencing leadership isolation syndrome. And this can be tricky because, quite frankly, it is our culture and our culture's impression of what leaders should be, that creates this issue. And so it's very easy to go, well, I guess I'll stop feeling isolated when my culture decides to think about leadership differently. I don't know if you can wait that long. And also, we are co-creators of our culture. So we are both we are created by our culture, or how we experience life is due in part to our culture, but our culture is also due in part to us and our actions and our perceptions. And really, the only way that this thing is going to turn around in your life, but also in our culture, is if we as individuals take responsibility and say, no, you know what? The buck stops with me, or this cycle stops here with me. It is your life. It is your flourishing. It is your health. It is your ability to lead sustainably. It is your calling. It is your purpose, etc., 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 etc. You need to take responsibility for whether or not you're experiencing leadership isolation syndrome. And so maybe the structures in your organization don't exist, or maybe the structures in your organization are not conducive to connection. Sorry, phone's just starting to ring. I don't know, that's going to show up on my laptop soon. Maybe those structures in your organization are not conducive to a connected leadership, right? Maybe the structures in the organization that you're working in are are actually conducive to isolated leadership. That is still not a reason for you to remain isolated. It's still not a reason for you to remain lonely. You need to take responsibility and really make a decision to take it upon yourself to rectify the experience that you are having and to change it. Point number 2 is that you need to change your mind about how this stuff works. Now, what is this stuff? This stuff is community, friendship, connection. So many of us think that relationships or healthy relationships just happen. And that if I have an unhealthy relationship, it's because I'm unlucky, right? And all of those people out there who have great relationships, it's because they just found the right people to be in relationship with, and that I just haven't found the right people yet. That is BS, okay? That is nonsense. That's not how relationships work. My pastor likes to say that community is forged, not found. And I feel like that is the most perfect way to describe what we're talking about. The kind of relationships that you dream about, the kind of connection that you're hopeful for, the kind of relationship health that you fantasize about is available to you and it is accessible to you. It is completely possible for you to live that kind of life, but you need to make a decision to forge those kinds of relationships and not just hope that they will find you one day. So there's a lot that we can say about this. I mean, there's probably a bazillion subpoints to this one point, but I think the first thing is like, we need to change our mind how this stuff works. If you're going to wait to find the right people so that you can have the right relationships, enjoy the right kind of connection, you're going to be waiting a very long time. And the truth is that community connection is something that we have an active role in forging around ourselves. And it's not something that just happens. You guys good? You tracking with me? If you're watching the replay, why don't you hashtag replay? Let me know that you're here. Why don't you let me know if you can relate to any of this stuff? Like, what's going on in the organizations that you're working in? Do you feel like they're conducive to connection, or do you think they're conducive to isolation? Do you feel like, do you know that it is your responsibility to fix it? How do you think about community? Are you waiting for it to find you, or are you on a mission to forge it, to take the step and make it happen? And so the last thing actually is to take the first step. And this may be just my predisposition because of how I'm wired, and which is really as a learner, and I'm very curious about all kinds of things and I love to learn things. But you know what, you guys? Relationships, and healthy relationships in particular, the ability to maintain, to form, and grow in healthy relationships, these are not personality traits necessarily. I think that every single personality type on the planet has traits that are conducive to healthy relationships, but also traits which are conducive to toxic relationships, right? And so really the variable when it comes to the people who have great relationships and the people who have awful ones, one of them at least, is having the skills necessary. Like, you have skills required to ride bicycles, to drive cars. There is a certain amount of skill and knowledge required to be healthy, like to engage in physical activity in an appropriate way. There are certain skills and resources that we need to have or possess in order to be able to cook or eat healthy foods, right? And so there are skills and knowledge that we need in order to have healthy relationships. And so honestly, if you've been able to accept that this is your responsibility to fix, if you have decided, or if you realize that, hey, like, I need to forge the community around me that I want, I can't just wait for it to find me, then your first step, I believe, is to learn about these skills and this kind of knowledge. The first step, I believe, is to equip yourself with the tools, equip your personal relationship toolbox with the tools that it needs, as well as the knowledge of how to use those tools to forge healthy relationships, right? And so there are a ton of resources out there. I mean, honestly, books, that's my love language. There are a ton of incredible communities on the internet, like the community like that I run and manage. And like, literally, you guys, Success or solutions and support for heart-centered mompreneurs exists for this reason. It exists so that women who are committed to making an impact in the world can also deal with the baggage and equip themselves, I guess, with the tools as well as the know-how of how to use those tools so that they can leverage those skills, leverage those tools in their calling, in the purpose that God has given for them for their lives, and so that they can lead and have influence in their spheres as people who are truly healthy, people who are increasingly whole, people who are leading from a place of sustainability, a place of knowing that they are worthy and not using their calling, using the people that they are trying to quote unquote help or serve in order to feel worthy and lovable. Like, all of this is relationship skills, you guys. And you could join communities like mine on Facebook and just learn as much as you can if this is an area of your life that you feel like really needs attention. The second thing that I wanted to say is that if you are an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur who is recognizing that a lot of the way in which she sees herself, a lot of the way in which she sees and relates to other people, and maybe even a lot of what she believes about the world and herself is increasingly becoming an obstacle to her being able to live out her dreams and to fulfill the calling that she feels God has in her life, then I want to tell you about my Get Unstuck, Stay Unstuck group coaching program, which is a program that meets every single week, every Friday morning, Central Standard Time. And we basically just hash out this stuff together. We talk about it. We also have monthly strategic planning, which we do together to make sure that we manage our time correctly, we steward that well. If you need help preparing social media type stuff, we have time set aside to make sure that stuff gets done. And so we really aim to deal with issues that arise at the root, but also to create very practical solutions to the issues that we feel like are in our way, really. And the last thing that I just want to remind you about is the Mompreneur Mentorship Program. Like, this program exists to help you see yourself differently. It exists to help you come up for air if you feel like you are treading water, and it exists to create community around you. Like, literally, that is one of the reason why it's structured the way it is so that it can increase as far as possible the potential for relationships and community to be forged, so that it can increase as far as possible the potential for you to know that you are not alone, and to reduce as far as possible leadership isolation syndrome. So that's why it exists. And so you're welcome to just let me know if you want more information about any of that stuff. Alrighty, you guys, I need to pop out of here and go snuggle some kids. In the meantime, why don't you let me know what your number one takeaway was? And if you have, after watching this video, what is the one thing that you feel like you need to do as a next step if you are about to take on this leadership isolation syndrome? All right, you guys, have a fantastic day. I'll see you around.